Our parents didn't have hookup apps, and we do now. So
a lot of them couldn't even leave their hometown.
So let's talk about relationships. It seems, maybe this is not accurate, but it seems like they're so much harder today than they were during our parents' generation. What do you guys think about this? Is this notion true, false?
Melanie, I don't think they're harder or easier. I think that we might think that they are because of reality TV or that we have more choices than our parents. However, I think it's all about commitment. And with commitment comes responsibility. Now, that doesn't mean you need to stay in a bad relationship because we have the choice to leave. But I do think sometimes we give up too soon. And that's my opinion.
I think relationships are kind of harder because they're more of a sign of society today, where we're this quick fix. We're on Twitter, we're on social media. I think that's a big impact on relationships because especially for those people who maybe always know there's a bigger fish in the sea, there's just such a pond of people out there when you can touch across the miles. If you're even on a dating site, you can say, okay, well, I'll date someone within this circumference, within this distance, which could be hundreds of miles. Those are not things our parents had or our grandparents had. They got to go to the church function, they got to meet a neighbor and maybe find a spouse from there. So it's a very changing society. Our parents didn't have hookup apps, and we do now. So
a lot of them couldn't even leave their hometown.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think their staying power was stronger than today. Today, folks don't put up with nothing. You get tired and sick and tired of being in a relationship, or you don't like what's showing up for you. Just change it. Like you change clothes, you change relationships. So people are in and out of them, but instead of getting the lesson, that person is there to help you learn. In looking back at our parents and their relationships, I think they took more. They had the staying power. The mothers stayed doing their work, the kitchen, the children, whereas the fathers went out and brought the bacon home. Today, the women are bringing the bacon home, doing everything else that needs to be done. And so there's a difference between the two. I agree with you, Kathy. I don't think necessarily that the past, those times are more difficult, or these are more difficult, or one is more difficult or easier than the other. I think it's just the timing that we're in. Back then it was difficult for them because they put up with a lot of things that they didn't have the help and support with. Today, things are difficult. I think you just have to be accountable for yourself and look at yourself as an individual and where you want your life to be. What do you want in your life and for your own life? We're modeling that for those around us, our community, our children, and other women who are looking at us.
There's some good news about relationships because when they're good, they're better than ever. And that's largely because they're more equal, more egalitarianism, more roles and flexibility. But overall, happiness in relationships is down. Just statistics, this is just research. And the reasons I think are greater expectations, right? And greater stressors. And I hate to keep sounding like a broken record, but money is a big stressor. It influences all the top 7 problems in relationships. So, the good news is the quickest way to become a millionaire in the United States is get married, stay married, and, live beneath your means.
Oh, wow.
That's the quickest way, the most common way to become a millionaire in the United States. So the good news is when they work well, they're great and they're even better, but there are those stressors and a lot of it is technology. I really
do. You think so?
Yeah, technology.
Yes.
We know now that that's put a lot of stress. It's phone time, it's options, and just choice overload. The more choices you have, the more likely you're going to be unhappy with any choice you make.
That's right.
That brings up an interesting point, Pat. Reminds me of a recent question that came from a client. Is that she was in a relationship and he was a little younger and he decided to part. In that parting, it was the finances. He had started to overspend and she was concerned about, they weren't married, but they were considering getting married. But because of her having to pull the financial weight, it brought the distance in the relationship. So, and we've always known that finances did play a great role or responsibility in relationships, and somehow money gets in there and it just changes us. Whether you came from a family who was thrifty, whether you came from a family who had the money and just threw it out there, money does play a great role in relationships, getting in them and getting out of them.
All right, well, you heard it from the panel. Sounds like what everybody's saying is that your relationship may be harder today or easier today, but it depends on you.
All right.